So, hey Brianna, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing good. Doing good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. So, thank you for taking your time and doing this for me. I really appreciate that. And also, my listeners will really appreciate you taking your time today.
Of course.
So,
Definitely happy to be here.
excellent, excellent. So, before I start any podcast or my guest, I always like to ask a question. Tell us something about you which most people don't know.
Hmm. I guess most people don't know that I am very interested in real estate. So I'm a real estate investor.
Wow,
But people wouldn't know that. Yeah.
that is very intriguing. Okay, all right. So I would love to talk about that more. Okay, cool. So Brianna, so the reason the way I came across you was I saw your LinkedIn post, and I think I've gone through multiple ones now. So I really don't know which one I had seen first, but it was related to F1 visa. I believe somebody had not gotten a chance to go back to their country in a
Yeah.
while, and there was
Mm.
a screenshot you had posted, and I could totally relate to that. I
Mm.
myself lost one of my grandfather in 2016,
Wow.
and 2022 is the year I was able to go back. So it took me six
Wow.
years.
This year. Wow. Yeah.
So it was really sad, and it was a battle for me. So, but I really appreciate what you had posted and the awareness you were creating. And I think you will really help a lot of people today by sharing your story. So,
Of
can you
course.
just give us a little bit of your current background? What do you do? Where you are located? And what you are passionate about, maybe?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm currently located in Dallas, Texas, and I'm originally from Jamaica.
Hmm.
So came to the US as a student in 2016.
Okay.
Straight from Jamaica to Washington, D.C. to attend Howard University,
Hmm.
where I studied supply chain management.
Okay.
So that's kind of where the story started, just as an international student. There were just so many things to know. And of course, I knew nothing at the time. I just knew that, I had a flight at 6 a.m. So it's been a learning process overall, just for that entire experience up until work life. And, just my passions overall are, just lifting as I climb. I really love helping people.
Hmm.
I wish, I could duplicate myself to help more people. But unfortunately, that's not possible because, it's really hard to try and help everyone that I come across. So,
Hmm.
I definitely have to take control of my time a lot of the times and yeah, just help where it's convenient for me and for the other party as well. So, yeah.
Understood. Very interesting. So I know we're gonna go everywhere here, but couple of questions I had. So, so you did your undergrad in US. That means
Yes.
okay, excellent. And then why undergrad? Like, why come to US for undergrad?
Yeah. So, I mean, living in Jamaica, it's a beautiful island. People visit there all the time for vacations. We actually have this thing where we say, I live where you vacation.
Hmm.
However, the opportunities that are there for just anything post grad or after high school is just very minimal, right?
Okay.
So the education system is actually really good, but the marketplace is just very poor, unfortunately.
Understood.
And also people who I even went to school with, they stayed back in Jamaica to study medicine. We actually have a very good medical school and school of law as well. However, in my final year of high school, I quickly realized that I didn't want to do medicine
Hmm.
anymore, and it would be best for me to go to the US to study for undergrad. Of course,
Okay.
it was almost impossible at the moment. I thought that it was completely impossible because, it was just so expensive.
Yeah.
I'm sure many can relate. You have to provide affidavit of support most of the times to the U.S.
Yes.
Embassy, and just to prove or to show that is already a task. You know, a lot of people, they have to ask so many people for help in showing bank statements and everything. But you know, I was able to make it possible through friends, family, also support from, you know, just faculty at school and so on. And yeah, you know, that's how I ended up here in 2016.
Wow, that is very interesting. And I'm sure my listener would love to know what is the conversion rate from Jamaica to US?
Yeah, currently, I mean, it's always fluctuating, but I guess it's a steady 148.
Okay, all right. Okay,
Yeah,
so 148 Jamaican, what is the currency called there?
Jamaican dollars.
Oh, okay, Jamaican dollars to US
Yeah,
dollars. Interesting.
yeah.
Wow, very cool.
Hmm.
Okay. And are you guys a cricket fan there?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Jamaica is definitely big on cricket. We have, you know, we have Chris Gale,
Oh,
Courtney
yeah.
Walsh.
Okay.
You know, these are people who I even, or at least family members, are very well associated with as
Okay.
well. So, yeah, definitely big on cricket. I've been to about two cricket matches or so.
Wow, that is amazing. I have never been to one, even being a diehard cricket fan. I know. I am looking forward to the 2024 Cricket World Cup, which is going to be in Caribbean and US. So I am super
Yeah,
excited for it, and I can't wait to
yeah,
get
yeah.
those tickets and stuff like that. Uh,
Awesome.
that's very interesting. Yeah, you know Chris Gale. That's very cool. Wow.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
but okay, all right. So moving on, one of the intriguing things I was going through your LinkedIn, I saw was you have done your internship at Microsoft
Yeah.
and you're currently working there as well as a program manager, I believe, right?
Yes.
So, can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, so you studied supply chain, and that is totally a little bit different. I feel like getting into, I think you're like into cloud computing or something like that. So, can you
Yeah,
tell us
yeah.
how did that happen?
Yeah, so it's very, very, very similar.
Hmm.
So studied supply chain management under the School of Business. So
Okay.
pretty much a business degree. And my role at Microsoft is actually supply chain planner slash supply chain program manager. So
Okay.
in the cloud, you definitely have the engineering side, and they're the ones who do, you know, like all the requisites for the hardware side.
Hmm.
But then you actually have a supply chain discipline in the cloud that
Okay.
is responsible for sourcing and procuring all of the different parts that are required to go into the data centers.
Okay.
So in supply chain, you know, it's basically the movement of materials to be in the right place at the right time for the right cost. And, you know, with data centers, if you ever happen to visit one, you will see that there are millions of components in these data
Okay.
centers. We actually have these things called server racks, and within one of those racks, you have, you know, so many different components. I mean, we source, you know, very small parts down to a screw,
Okay.
and you know that's kind of where the supply chain comes in. Without supply chain, the cloud wouldn't be possible, because at the end of the day, the engineers, they might do all of the work in you know, identifying all the components that are needed to build the servers, but identification is not enough. You still have to get that equipment from, you know, a certain supplier or a certain source, and that's kind of where my organization comes in.
Understood, understood.
Yeah.
So going back a little bit, I want to track your footsteps going into Microsoft, from starting the university. So you landed in 2016. So how was your journey at your university? Obviously, do you speak English in Jamaica as well, or is that not something you speak? Like you speak a different language there, and then this was like, what was it like for you to study at
Yeah,
the
yeah.
university?
So it wasn't that hard for me because in Jamaica we actually speak English.
Okay.
We speak standard English. That's our first language. Even though we do have our own dialects, we call it
Mhm.
Patwa.
Okay.
So we have Jamaican patois, but it's based off of English, right?
Okay.
So it, in schools and everything, we write our essays, we do our testing all in English, standard English. So US trying to figure out the transportation system. I didn't live on campus, so
Yeah.
I was commuting for the first year. So,
Okay.
that was really hard to figure out as well. And, just the culture overall is a culture shift. One of the major things that I always remember is, where I would greet someone or someone would greet me and they would say, "How are you doing?" And I would respond, but by that time they would be gone.
Yeah.
So, in Jamaica, that's definitely not how we would do it. It would be a case where, someone would ask you how you're doing and you respond and, they respond as well. But how are you is basically a greeting. And I didn't know that until I got here. So, that was one of the things that kind of made me laugh when I first got here. But in terms of other things, I mean, just a college experience was definitely an eye opener. It was hard because I came to the US with $400.
Wow.
So a lot of my, other classmates who I went to school with, high school, they came with, $1,000 or, $3,000. They came with sufficient funds to last them for a semester of expenses.
Understood.
However, I came with $400 and, I quickly had to figure out how am I going to survive. And fortunately, I was able to get an on-campus job. But, for most of my time at Howard, I was worried. I was trying to figure out how on earth am I going to pay for this semester. So each semester, I just took it one semester at a time. Because if I looked at the entire cost,
Yes.
I wouldn't have made the trip here. But just taking it one step at a time, looking at all the costs associated with each semester, it kind of gave me, the confidence that, all right, maybe $5,000 isn't that bad. So, yeah, that's kind of how I was able to just power through it.
Wow. So, couple of questions come to me right now is like, first of all, is the Howard University located in the Metro DC area or is it a little bit further?
Metro
Where is it?
DC.
Where is it exactly located in DC area?
Yeah. So it's located about like an 8-minute drive from the White House.
Oh, okay. That's not bad at all. That's very
Yeah,
close.
yeah.
You're central. So things are
Yeah.
expensive. It's not cheap. DC is one of the
Yeah,
most
yeah.
expensive areas. So how
Yeah.
far were you living and what was your rent like? And how much,
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you don't mind going into like the details of like, how did you really
Yeah.
afford? Because there are a lot of students who are dreaming about what we are talking and they are like, oh my God, how am I going to figure it out? What are
Yeah.
the like logistics of that? So you
Yeah.
break us down for that. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So fortunately, I was able to stay with a relative in my first semester.
Nice.
So I stayed with a relative. So she was only there short term. She was a diplomat for Jamaica to the US, and we weren't really that close.
Okay.
But I mean, I got the opportunity to go to Howard kind of on a whim. Like, I think within 2 weeks, I found out that I was going to go. And
Oh,
I was
okay.
So
Okay.
that was pretty much what happened. So I reached out to her and she said, I could stay there for 3 months. So that's kind of what I did for the first 3 months. After that, I was able to, I remember someone told me that I would figure it out. So, to whoever is listening, you figure it out. Someone told me that, just take the first step in faith. And that's exactly what I did. So after the first semester, I got a 4.0 and I was kind of seen as, that freshman who was kind of on their way to doing great things. I established relationships with all the faculty. So as soon as I told them that, hey, this is my situation, I'm living with a cousin and she's going to be leaving, they were able to help me and I was able to get some on-campus housing. I mean, it wasn't 100% paid for, but I remember getting a scholarship from Wells Fargo.
Okay.
within the School of Business. And that's kind of what helps me to take that step into moving on campus.
Got it.
But every time I think about the fact that, I could have turned down the offer to coming because I didn't have anywhere to live for the first semester. I just always am very thankful for the person who told me that, you'll figure it out after the first semester and you should just go. So, yeah, just monthly expenses overall. On campus housing is not cheap. So that was about 1,200 per month.
Understood.
For rent.
Okay.
And then, you still have to buy food. I didn't have a meal plan. I never ever had a meal plan. But I had great friends who I met at Howard. And, they would tell me, hey, do you want to, get a swipe into the cafeteria? So I kind of survived on that. I was able to do the on-campus employment. So I worked in the library for 20 hours a week.
20 hours, yeah.
Yeah. So I worked in the library, and it was a pretty cool job because I was able to do, a lot of reading and homework. So it was a really cool job, and just with the income from that, I was able to pay for, my different expenses. And I think on an average, each semester at Howard, I would owe approximately $5,000, $6,000 each semester.
For tuition fees, okay.
Yeah, so I was able to pay that over time with the money from the on-campus employment and the different scholarships that I applied for. So I was always applying to different scholarships. I think there was one point where I needed to register for classes for the next semester. And then there was a hold on my account, of course. There was always a hold on my account.
I've been there, yes.
And, so I remember one time I was checking my account to see how much I owed and how am I going to get through this to register. And then there was a glitch, and the hold came off my account for like 2 days. Okay. So I quickly registered for classes, and then when I checked 2 days later, the hold was back on, but I was still registered. And I'm just like, wow, is it God? So that's kind of how I was able to make it through. It was always, just on a whim. So yeah.
That is so interesting. You reminded me of a story in 2015 I went through. I had a hold on my account, and my tuition fees were very expensive, like $10,000 to $12,000 per semester. I went to Lawrence Tech for a tech school, civil engineering. And Jan 7th, they had told me if I cannot pay my tuition fees, I had to leave the country. Like, oh my gosh. They had given me that. They're like, yeah, you cannot register and this is your last date. I don't remember how I managed that money. I'm sure like my parents helped me out at that time, and I was teaching students and stuff like that and just like making money. But that is, I know what you went through. It's like the stress and the pressure and the fear, the fear is like, I've built a life here. How can I just leave and go? It's like,
exactly.
The school is really good at inducing that fear into you. Like, oh, you have to, like anything bad you do, you're like, you have to leave the country. You don't have a 3 points GPA, you have to leave the country. It's like, the worst thing is like, you have to leave the country. So,
it is.
I can relate to you. So that's amazing. So can you tell us, okay, so now you are at Washington, DC, you're going to school, you're getting these scholarships, you have established yourself on like, you're applying, because if you're there, like a lot of students ask me, like, how do I find these scholarships? So how did you find them? Can you give us like maybe a 1 minute snapshot of where did you find these and how did you apply for them?
Yeah, so I think from a very early stage, I would always lean on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn has been my go-to source for finding a lot of opportunities, including scholarships. So the external scholarships, I would usually go into the search bar and I would look for, I would type in scholarships and my classification at the time. So I would type in scholarship sophomore.
Okay.
And, to be even more specific, sometimes I would type in scholarship sophomore business.
Understood.
To see if, there were any companies giving out any scholarships to sophomore students. And to even be more specific, Sometimes I would even put in, a keyword for minority,
Mm-hmm.
woman, supply chain, operations. I would put in those keywords, just jumble them around sometimes. And, sometimes I would get results. And that's kind of how I went about applying for scholarships. But the major scholarships really came from my department,
Mm-hmm.
the School of Business, because I had established myself within that within that department as someone who is reliable and very dedicated to work.
Mm-hmm.
Just student life overall. I was just always being looked out for within the department. So whenever scholarships came up, I would get emails about them, and then I would apply. And trust me, I would definitely be putting my all into those applications because
Yeah.
I knew that they were like my last choice. So for example, I did apply for an external scholarship with McKinsey, I think,
Okay.
at that point. And I didn't get it. Someone
Mm-hmm.
else got it. And that really hurt me because
Understood.
I was in a very tough spot at the time and I really needed that $3,000. But it turned out that, just through that rejection and just looking for more scholarships, I was able to secure something for $8,000 for that following semester. So, rejection is just redirection pretty much. And I was just able to find those scholarships through social media and the department overall. Thankfully, I was in the supply chain department, so I think supply chain is a very niche area or concentration.
Yeah.
So I know that the faculty has grown, the student body has grown within supply chain, but when I was there, it was pretty small. So we all knew each other. So fortunately for me, that would mean that also the scholarships out there, there are minimal people applying for them.
Understood.
In comparison to, engineering scholarships or
Yeah.
marketing or stuff like that. So I was just really fortunate at the time to be doing supply chain and, just getting those scholarships given to the supply chain department, which could be then, handed to me when I applied. So, yeah.
Understood. Okay. Is supply chain a STEM program? Does it qualify under STEM?
So it doesn't.
Oh, wow.
So that was something that I discovered within my second year. I didn't know anything about STEM or all this stuff. I found out that supply chain was not classified as a STEM degree, but at other schools it was classified as a STEM degree.
Yes.
So, for example, UMich, I think, and U of M. Yeah, so U of M and Michigan State.
Michigan State, yes. Michigan State is top university for supply chain in US.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it is. I was surprised because Michigan State itself is like not highly ranked, but their supply chain program, like super highly executives I have met like in Detroit area, and I was surprised to know high compensation they commanded from there.
Exactly.
It's the top school.
I was surprised because I didn't know until I came to Microsoft that Michigan State was a school for supply chain, and right now I'm trying to figure out what does it mean to be highly ranked in supply chain? How did they get this title? But definitely,
it's interesting. Maybe I can answer that question for you. So here's the thing. Michigan's supply chain, if you know, going back to the history, there are three big three, we call them: GM, Ford, Chrysler. So the automotive industry is like kind of like, all that supply chain happened in Michigan, if you really notice, like the Ford.
That's true.
And so he always, like, the funding always stayed in Michigan for that. They encouraged people to go to different schools and train on them. And I believe that's how Michigan State always had people coming here and studying for that. Michigan State is also known for producing really qualified civil engineers just like that. And that's when I went to, like, the company currently I work for, everybody in my office, like, almost 60-70% people are from Michigan State as civil engineers. So,
Oh, wow.
and that's some things I learned about supply chain, that apparently this school is really good. I don't know how expensive it is to do your master's program, but if it's under 50K, I would say somebody who is interested in supply chain,
Yeah.
definitely look into MSU. Excellent
Yeah,
university
yeah.
and great
Yeah.
placement as well.
Yeah, I would say that too. Every major company that I've ever come across that has a supply chain department, they're looking at that school for hires. So
Understood. Do you have folks at Microsoft who are working, who are from MSU?
yeah, 100%.
Okay, understood.
There's a good number of them. If I could say a percentage, it would probably be it would probably be very high, but that's how it feels a lot of the time. I come across people and they're just like, "Oh yeah, I went to MSU," so definitely a huge community there.
Understood. That's very interesting. That's good to know. All right. So, going from there, then, so you find out that it's not a STEM program. That means you only have 1 year of OPT.
Near OPT,
You will not get that extension. So, tell us the story of how you found your first internship, and was it at Microsoft as well?
Yeah. So, well, first, after finding out that the program was not STEM, I was bummed. I was just like, oh wow, that means after 1 year I would have to leave. That's just such a huge risk. So I was actually thinking of switching my major. So I've explored that option, but then I realized that it just wouldn't be worth it. There would just be an extension of me going to school, and that equals more money, which I did not have. So I was committed to getting my first internship as a freshman.
Okay.
Everyone told me that it wasn't worth the try because freshmen don't get internships. That was what I learned. But I ended up getting my first internship in about May of my freshman year. So it was pretty late. I basically gave up hope at that point, but this is just the power of networking and connections. I had a mini mentor. He was about 2 years ahead of me, and I would always, just keep him updated on what I was doing. He helped me draft my first resume and everything. And he actually told me about a housing solutions company, which one of his mentors worked at, and they were looking for interns. So he recommended me, and that was how I ended up getting that first internship. I actually had a flight back home to Jamaica, and I was going to spend some time there and try and see if I could get an internship in Jamaica. And I think 3 days before my flight, that was when I found out that I would get the internship and I would have to come back. So I ended up going for a couple of days, just renewing my passport. Then I came right back and started working.
Understood.
So that was my first internship. And the second internship was at Cummins.
Okay.
In Columbus, Indiana. A lot of international students actually intern at Cummins. So I was one of them, and it was my only internship offer. And it was one of 2 companies that I interviewed with. By my second year at Howard, I was feeling very demotivated with just getting jobs overall, because, as soon as I would start talking and these recruiters would hear my accent, it was like I'm invisible. They would just be like, okay, this one is international, and we don't sponsor international students.
Okay. So sponsorship was the issue. They would be like, they hesitated to.
Yeah. So even though you don't need sponsorship for an internship, a lot of the internships, they convert into full-time offers. So if they're not able to do that for you, they're considering it as a waste of investment. And, I understand that point right there, but it was really hard for me to accept that. And I remember, just being in my dorm, and I called my mom and I told her that, the career fair is going on, but I'm not going because it doesn't make any sense. And I'm just gonna, just do some schoolwork and just figure it out. And my mom, she's not really aware of the climate as much, but she was just like, Brianna, just go, just put on your business suits and just go to the career fair. You never know what's gonna happen. And you know, I guess I just needed someone to tell me that. And she said, even if it means if it's one company you talk to, at least you tried. And Cummins was the second company I spoke to. And the person the recruiter at the time, she was actually like a main operations lead.
Okay.
She was just like, we want to interview you. So, you know, we're going to have set up the interviews for tomorrow. And I stayed up until late waiting on that email from her for the interview schedule. And I actually got it. I got the interview schedule, and then I ended up interviewing and getting the offer. And that was my only offer at the time. And I ended up accepting it because, I mean, of course, why wouldn't I? And that was my second internship, you know. Of course, it came with its challenges in terms of, you know, just how to navigate Columbus, Indiana. I mean, I didn't have a car or anything at the time. But, you know, things just worked out in the best way possible.
Understood.
So,
this was summer, right? This is summer. You're doing a summer internship.
Yeah, summer internship.
Well, you're fortunate because the weather is good in Columbus, Indiana during that time. Because if you go in winter, you won't. Yeah, and then another thing, I'm sure you met a lot of students from Purdue. I believe Purdue is right there.
Yeah, definitely did.
A lot of students from there. Interesting. So this is your second year. You've already completed your second internship. So what happened in the third year? So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, definitely. The third year was very interesting for me. The third year started off with a bang. So I think it was, when was it? Yeah, so upon going back to school after my Cummins internship, I was committed to returning full time.
Okay.
Because, you know, at this point, I've seen the reality that it's really hard for international students to get job offers from these companies.
Yeah.
But I started doing my research and I realized that a lot of the companies actually do sponsor. And there was a way to find out. So I started looking at sites like h1bdata.info, just a lot of those H1B visa-based sites. And they gave me a pretty good indication of which companies would actually sponsor international students, because the data that they post is public information.
Yeah.
And it's required that they publish this information. And it showed you just how many candidates they sponsored H1B visas for within that company, and, you know, the different disciplines as well. So I was able to do that, and I saw a lot of tech companies there. And I was just like, okay. I saw some consulting companies as well. And that was when I realized that, okay, I could have been a little more strategic in my search all along. There was a way, but it wasn't publicized. So after that, you know, I started looking into those companies, and I applied for Deloitte Consulting. I applied for almost every tech company, Dell, Microsoft. Did I apply for Google? I don't think so. I applied to a lot of companies in that year. And, you know, during the application process, I ended up getting my return offer from Cummins.
Okay.
And they gave me a very short deadline to accept. It was about a couple days.
Oh, wow.
And I actually had the Deloitte interview. I got an interview, a super day interview. And I remember being so intimidated by all the students there, because, you know, they were coming from, you know, all these Ivy League universities and everything. But I ended up getting that offer from Deloitte.
Wow.
And for the final year internship. And I had those two offers back to back in my inbox, just sitting there. And I was like, whoa, you know, this is actually more hopeful than I thought. So at that point, I knew that I wasn't going to return to Queens again for the following year. It just didn't align with where I wanted to be geographically and even career-wise as well. So I declined that offer, and I, ended up considering the Deloitte offer. And I actually accepted the Deloitte offer.
Okay. Nice.
But then school, we had a career fair in the School of Business, and I wasn't even, I was so content with my Deloitte offer. I was just like, this is fine. I'm going to be okay. However, when I started to do more research, I saw that I was accepted to the government and public service, something like that practice. And within that practice, they don't sponsor international students.
Okay.
So I knew that if I did that internship, I would have to find another group to go under to get sponsored, which I was okay with, to be honest. So the career fair happened, and Microsoft was there. And I remember seeing the recruiter. He was using an iPad, typing on his, just typing on the iPad all the info. And I was just jovial and joking with everyone. So I went over to him, or at least he stopped me and asked me a question. And I said, oh, hey, I wasn't really, like entertaining him that much, because I knew that I had applied to Microsoft in the past, and, I didn't hear back. Or at least I was rejected. So I was just kidding around, and I was just like, why are you using an iPad? What's wrong with the Surface? You don't have a Surface tablet you can use? And he was just like, that's a good question. And then we started talking and laughing. And, he told me some stuff about Microsoft, and I was pretty interested, just about the supply chain organization. And I think a week after that, I ended up getting invited to an interview.
Oh, wow.
And this was in November.
Okay.
I got invited to, October. I got invited to the phone interview. So I ended up doing that with the hiring manager, or at least a hiring manager at the time. But I was really laid back, because there's just something about having an offer on the table that makes you confident and laid back, and you're able to, just show your best self. Without being
true self. Your true self,
your true
self. I have a saying, every time people ask me this, as internationals, when you don't have an offer, you are like a beggar, beggars cannot be choosers, and choosers will never beg. That's like my philosophy of life, so creating options is like, I thrive on that, because I know if I want to be myself, I don't need to be worried about where that next paycheck or that thing is coming from, because that just gives you so much confidence to be yourself.
Exactly.
So that's really interesting.
I like that.
Yeah. And not only that, like, I feel the reason like you got that is because you are yourself. You didn't have the pressure to impress someone, isn't it?
Yeah. Exactly. That's exactly what happened. I literally took the call outside of a class. I was talking to the person. We had a very good conversation. I wasn't obsessed over, oh my gosh, I need this job at Microsoft, and please pick me. I wasn't, giving that energy at all.
Yeah.
And I ended up hearing back that I got invited to the final rounds, which was a super day in Washington, and I was really excited for the travel. And that was when the reality struck me. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I got to the final round. I'm going to have to give this my all. I remember I called my husband. He was my boyfriend at the time.
Okay.
I called him, and I was just like, I'm going to have to give this my all. Like, I got so far to the final round. I can't joke around anymore. This is actually a good opportunity.
Yes.
And I studied for that interview. I remember staying up, watching videos about, just other interns, a different culture, questions that might pop up, just everything. So I went into that interview, or the interviews. I wasn't obsessed with the idea of working for Microsoft. I was obsessed with the idea of having a new life, pretty much.
Amazing.
A new, everything that they could help me with, just the sponsorship stuff, and even the just the compensation was better than Deloitte. And I was just like, yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to level up and just try my best for this. So yeah, I ended up doing well in the 4 interviews. Of course, at the time I wasn't sure if I did well or not, but I ended up hearing back, and that trip was very eye-opening. It was just, Washington is just a beautiful place. I do recommend people to visit there.
Yeah.
It is hard to thrive there as a minority, unfortunately. But I was able to live there for about a year and a half, and I enjoyed, every moment of it. But of course, going back to the story and getting the offer from Microsoft, that was pretty much a roller coaster, because I met so many other people who had gotten their offers. And I think 2.5 weeks later, I didn't hear back.
Wow.
So I thought that was it. And I was just saying, oh my gosh, like, I tried so hard. I think I deserve this.
Understood.
And I would have my phone beside me every single day. I would have my phone right there, because I heard that they would call, give you a phone call. I would have my phone there, nothing. And I remember I was in class one day and I saw my phone dying. And I was just like, oh, whatever. And my phone died. And when I ended up charging it, I saw 2 missed calls from Washington. And then I checked my email, then I saw they said, congrats, you got an offer. We were trying to reach you by phone. So that was kind of the story of what happened, and this was just for the internship. Of course, doing the internship the following year was a different story as well, but that was kind of the journey.
That's so incredible. I love that story, like when it's just incredible. I don't want to add anything more, to be honest. I want people to soak it in. So, all right. So that's very exciting. So let's say you're about to graduate. So you have an offer from Microsoft to come back. Is that what happened? So
yeah.
What department did you work at Microsoft then? Was it the same you are right now, or a different one?
Yeah, the same department. So it was the cloud supply chain and provisioning department.
Okay. Excellent. All right. So now let's say you did your internship, and then you get this written offer. You graduate now, and you have 1 year of OPT, correct?
Yes.
So how did that go through? So did you tell them that I need a sponsorship, and how did you actually get your H-1B on the first try, or what happened here? We want to know this. Yeah.
Yeah. So, honestly, I graduated early. I graduated a semester early.
Okay.
I had the job offer in the bag. I had all of my courses done, everything sorted out. So I decided to leave Howard a year early. I mean, a semester early. So I left in December of 2019. But of course, I was going to graduate with the class in May of 2020, which was when the world was crashing.
Close.
So, upon getting my return offer, I did return to the same organization, not the same team. And that's kind of how Microsoft works. Like, it's very likely for you to intern with a group, and you will come back under that same umbrella organization. So I came back to cloud supply chain and provisioning, but to a different team. So completely different manager and, just teammates and everything. I applied for OPT, and fortunately, they were able to issue it on time and everything, because I remember that was an issue in the past as well.
Yeah.
So I got it on time. But Microsoft is just very proactive. So from about 2 months before I started, they asked me all the questions that needed to be asked about OPT. They asked me if I had already applied for it. They were able to identify if Howard classified it as a STEM degree or not.
Wow. They did that for you.
Yeah, so they reached out, and
amazing.
They knew that I had 1 year of OPT. So with that said, Microsoft typically applies for H-1B for everyone, I think, upon graduating, for all international students. It's not a matter of if you have STEM OPT or not. Maybe it might be different for others, but for the most part, that's what I've observed.
Mm-hmm.
So upon joining, yeah, I hit the ground running with just the H-1B process. I think even before I started, they started gathering information for the H-1B
Understood.
application because, yeah, they needed everything by March, and I started in February. So
True.
I had everything sent off. But getting H-1B on the first try, I did not know how significant of an accomplishment that was until it actually happened, and until I had several friends applying for H-1B who did not get it on the first try, the second try, the third try, and that was when I was just like, wow, like this thing is really hard to get. It's really a lottery after all.
It is a lot, yeah.
So, yeah, I'm not sure how that happened. I did lose my grandfather in March 2020.
Understood.
And for all I know, I just consider it him just blessing me with that, or looking out for me from somewhere because that was a really, really rough year for me. And with that added frustration, just H-1B, the chances of not, or at least not getting it, that would have really, just dragged me down even more. So, yeah, I was able to get it on the first try. I mean, it wasn't easy. I did get an RFE.
Yeah.
And it was so strange to get an RFE because I majored in supply chain and my title said supply chain. It had the title there, so I was wondering what they were requesting evidence for. But I was able to put that paperwork together. It was about 7 to 10 pages of just documents and so on. And I was able to submit it and get the official H-1B approval notice by around this time. Yeah.
September, October. Yeah. Before October,
September 2020. Yeah.
Wow. That's really, really interesting. That is like somebody with an undergrad degree getting H-1B on their first try. Here's the thing. I will give you the stamp of approval that you are very, very fortunate. You have something. There is someone looking out for you. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
Exactly like you. I did my undergrad in US. I applied for H-1B on my first time. Sorry, my company, I couldn't find a company to sponsor me first time. I had to change jobs. Second time, they laid me off 1 month before getting an H-1B, giving me like fake reason. They didn't want to sponsor my H-1B, so they wasted one of my years. Third year, I joined the company I am today with, and they sponsored my H-1B. I did not get selected on my third try. God. So now I had to go back to masters. I figured out there are master schools in US which are legitimate that allow you to start working from the first day. And there was a lot of stigma around it, like there were a few fake universities who had done silly stuff and they had like made this really, really scary for people. So I had to investigate it, put in extra work. And on my fourth try, which is 2020, I got my H-1B as well. And I got an RFE as well, just like you.
Oh my God.
So it was the last year of the Trump era, and their administration was making it tough for everyone to get that. Anybody was just getting RFEs, and you had to reply to that and get it, this thing. So I went through the same process. So
wow. So that was in 2020, right?
2020, yeah. So very interesting. Okay. All right. So we want to hear, we maybe last 2-3 minutes and we'll wrap it up. But we want to hear. So, okay. I think I heard, read one of your posts that you're able to negotiate your salary. You're able to get a 600% raise in your stock compensation.
Yeah.
Tell us a story about that. If you're comfortable sharing numbers, please do that. People really appreciate that. But you'd love to know, because that transparency really helps, especially international audience and people of color, and especially like you will be obviously, building hope for a lot of immigrant women as well here. Yeah.
Yeah, happy to share. So I do have a disclaimer. I will be sharing the numbers next year
Hmm.
when Microsoft releases their, because they have a pay transparency
Yes,
initiative going on.
I know.
So when that happens next year, I'll, be sharing more of that. But for the most
Understood.
part, um, it was a difficult process for me because I mean, obviously I did have imposter syndrome for the entirety of my internship.
Hmm.
I I was the only black woman
Hmm.
in my org, and it was kind of hard for me to just know my worth and just accept the fact that I do belong here.
Hmm.
So negotiating was a hard thing for me to do, especially when I'm telling family members and friends who are just like, hey, just take it. What if they take it back? Because
Exactly.
that's
Exactly.
literally, as an immigrant, we
Hmm.
have to like face the facts with just family members and friends who are always telling us that, hey, be humble and,
Yeah.
just be grateful. And of course, you're grateful, but you also want to negotiate.
Very true.
You want to negotiate and you want to make sure that you're getting market rate for
Hmm.
the job that you're doing.
Very true.
So I got my offer, the return offer verbally. And, I guess one important thing is that you should always, always, always not accept the offer as soon as they tell you the numbers.
Okay.
Of course, a lot of people will know this fact, but there are also people like myself who are very tempted to say, yeah, yeah, of course, I accept. Because,
Hmm.
you're an international student and you know the benefits of this company.
True.
But yeah, so I would always, just end that conversation with, thank you for the possibility of returning to this great organization. Or if it's your first time interviewing with them and you've never done an internship,
Hmm.
just say, thank you so much for the opportunity to join this fabulous institution or this great company. Um, and, tell them that you're going to think about it and then get back to them.
Got it.
So negotiations, typically, some people say that they should happen by phone, some people say by email. I say both.
Okay.
It's always good to have that initial conversation over
Hmm.
the phone, which is what I was able to do. And I sent a very detailed email afterwards.
Hmm.
So what really motivated me to negotiate was with my manager for my internship. I expressed a little bit of dissatisfaction with just returning
Hmm.
because I was able to get exposure on what other interns were going to get,
Hmm.
as a return offer. And I did a major in supply chain management. A lot of
Hmm.
people did industrial engineering,
Hmm.
mechanical engineering. So, of course, the offers varied, but I believe that it shouldn't have varied that much.
Understood.
So, I wrote that letter and I pretty much, just crafted a brag sheet. It was really hard to do because I never
Mm.
ever brag. And, you have family telling you to be humble. So never
Understood.
ever brag. But I was able to just put together, all the things that I've accomplished up until this point. And even the internship and how great of a success it was and
Hmm.
how much impact I'll be creating for the organization.
Very true.
So the recruiter I was working with at the time, she found everything that I said very valid
Hmm.
and very important. And she was able to lobby for me as
Mm.
well and send up the information that I had presented to her to the higher ups to get that amount approved.
Understood.
Of course, a lot of people, even with the content that I put out, they're saying that 600% is a lot. And maybe I was lowballed. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I was lowballed. So everyone is usually lowballed. I mean, corporations, Sometimes they send out these offers and you might not be 100% aware of what others are making. You're just so happy to get a job that you just hit
True.
accept. But the first offer is never, ever the final offer.
Very
It's
true.
hardly ever the final offer. It's usually thrown out there as, just a starting point. So if you consider it as a starting point, you will never ever walk away without negotiating.
Very true.
And that was what I was able to do. I negotiated every aspect of my offer. There were some things that I knew were more negotiable than others, which included the stocks.
Yeah.
And I just demanded, or at least not demanded, but I requested, what I wanted. I just said, I would like these numbers. I didn't provide a range, but I provided an exact number because I just thought that, with the range, it's so easy for them to pick the lowest number.
Yeah.
But I also do recommend that if you're providing a range, have your lowest number as the highest number, as your actual target.
True.
Right?
Very true.
So
I like that. That is incredible. That is, wow. That is a really good advice. That's really good advice.
yeah. So
I have
that's
fallen
what I
trap
was
to that. I have given my highest number as my this thing and the lowest as this thing, and then
yeah.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. So it was definitely a journey. It didn't happen very quickly. So I guess another thing is to have patience with negotiating. And I did partner with someone from LinkedIn, on an article on negotiating where I outlined all of the tips that I thought were, very useful to me at the time. So I can send you that link and you can, take a look at it.
Definitely.
But it was everything that I thought that was useful, just being respectful, being patient, thanking them for the opportunity, providing exact numbers, having the conversation by phone, sending a follow-up email if possible with your brag sheet. All those things can essentially help you to get to the amount that you want. And of course, being okay with walking away if you definitely think you're being cheated on your offer. And in addition to that, the H-1B site was able to help me to determine what a good number was for entry. Because, in addition to finding out if the company sponsors or not, they do have the salary.
And the title as well.
And the title.
Absolutely.
So I was able to use that information to say, okay, I'm getting this less. So, I'm going to negotiate to that.
Got it.
So, yeah.
That's amazing. That's really incredible to hear that. And so tell us, in wrapping up, so how did you move from Seattle to Dallas? I believe you said, right? So when did that happen? How did you do that? And how did you grow on LinkedIn as well? So tell us a little bit about that as well. I see you have more 10,000 followers, connections, and that's incredible. And this is just the beginning. It's going to snowball from here.
Yeah. So with my move from Washington to Dallas, it was during the pandemic. Everyone was moving all around during the pandemic. And I was able to, just negotiate with my employer late last year about moving to Dallas. I told them about, just my situation in being in Washington for such a long time, alone. And my fiance was in Dallas and we're looking to get married. And, they understood. So I'm very grateful for that. And there is actually a major office that is or at least there are a lot of roles being posted for Microsoft in Austin.
Okay.
So I was very close to one of the new major hubs, at least. So that it was justified that I could move here. So I was able to. I've been to Austin a couple of times already, to visit and so on, but overall moved here for family reasons.
Understood.
And in terms of What was the last question again?
So the question was, how did you grow your LinkedIn? When did you
Oh, the
started it,
LinkedIn,
and then
right.
when did you started
Yeah.
posting this content, and how was that journey for you?
Yeah. So I would describe my LinkedIn as slow and steady, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest. I've been an avid user since 2017
Mm-hmm.
or so, and I've been posting content ever since then. When I
Okay.
first realized that, international students are very unlikely to get jobs, I was so frustrated that I made a
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn post about it. And that LinkedIn post, I think, got 5,000 likes or reactions or something. I titled it as Discrimination Against International Students. And, you know, so many people commented under it, just offering help and advice and so on. And after that, I actually created a LinkedIn group for international students. It still exists today, but I do plan on repurposing and creating more of a newsletter kind of based thing, because I do have a lot of information that I want to share. And there are a lot of people who ask me the same questions on a regular basis, and I do want to share, but unfortunately, I can't have 20-minute conversations with everyone. so, um, so yeah, that was kind of how I was able to build it out, just posting content about what frustrated me. And in return, I started posting content about, preventative things to do for international students. One of the things that I actually want to put out soon is when to apply for OPT, because a lot of people who I know, they actually did not apply for OPT on time, which was really crazy to me
Yeah.
because I was so obsessed with just the whole process while I was in school. So I started posting content about that, my journey to Microsoft, and over time, it was just a steady growth. So this has been from 2017. I do know people who joined LinkedIn this year and they're at
I
100,000
know.
followers or something.
Yeah.
I'm nearing about 14,000, but at the same time, I mean, it's a slow and steady because I more consider it as building a community. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of the people who are on the page, they're, minority, international students and, looking for opportunities just in the United States. So, I'm happy that, it's more community based more than, a viral sensation that quickly dies. So, yeah, that has been my journey.
That's amazing. Wow. So I think that's pretty much it, what we wanted to know, to be honest, and definitely I will post your LinkedIn in the description so the audience can connect with you.
Yeah, sure.
But I'm so grateful for you doing that. I'm going to summarize what you said in last 1 hour. And this is how I'm going to put it. So my analysis is, since day one, you are very self-aware of what you had and what you did not have. And what I
Mm-hmm.
have figured out through all of this is you are very strategic of getting these opportunities, getting those scholarships, getting that internship, getting that
Yeah,
offer from Microsoft, negotiating. So you're also overcoming a lot of fear, and you're also stepping up boundaries of like courage to get those things. That's
yeah,
what I have
yeah,
learned here. Like, yeah, I feel afraid asking for a raise sometimes, asking for the
yeah,
offer which I deserve. And, that's one thing I feel lacks among immigrants is boldness. And I can
yeah.
clearly see that you were stepping up and being bold, and you are rewarded for
Mhm.
boldness, in my opinion. And I really, really believe that.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. It's hard, but I believe anyone can be bold. Um, Honestly, my voice might tremble. I might be scared.
Mhm.
My hands might be sweating, but I'm still gonna do it. I'm still gonna say what I have to say or do what I have to do to get what I want.